Hey everybody, what's going on? I'm so glad you guys could join us today. Welcome to the Jerry Rig Podcast. We got lots of stuff we're going to talk about today. We're going to have some fun, first and foremost. Welcome back, and remember that Jerry Rig Podcast is your go-to source for all things business analysts, marketing, and technology. My name is Jerry Sherstead for some of you new folks. Today we're going to look at a very, very unique way in which you can gain experience on your profile or your resume. It's called clicked.com. Clicked, C-L-I-C-K-E-D.com. And clicked.com offers experience on demand. Not sure if you know what that is, but you're going to find out. So you might be saying, what is that? Well, I tell you what, I got the guy here who started the company. He's the CEO. His name is Jeff Sample. He's the kind of the head kahuna at click.com. So sit tight. We'll be right back here after we get our little groove on.
Yeah.
This is the Jerry Rigged Podcast, your no-nonsense knowledge base for business technology, marketing, and analytics. And now your host, Jerry Sherstead.
So my guest today is a guy by the name of Jeff Sample. He's the CEO of clicked.com. You've probably seen him on LinkedIn. He's all over there. And he just seems to be around in the Salesforce ecosystem. And he's got this cool concept. And I'm going to introduce him right now. Jeff, what's going on?
The big kahuna on the stage. All right, Jerry. Excited to be here, man.
Thank you for taking time out of your day to hang out with us here at the Jerry Rig Podcast. We're going to help some folks who have this little piece in their life and in their journey where some folks have no experience, but they got certifications. Some people have certifications and a little bit of experience, but they want to expand that and really show that experience. One of my previous podcasts, we talked about experience and how on LinkedIn, there's a section there below your profile that is called experience. It's not called a chronological list of every formal job you've had. It's called experience. And so how hiring managers and recruiters interpret that list of experience is completely up to them.
Yeah, I mean, 100%, right? Like, I think when you think about like anything though with like careers, like experience is the fulcrum, right? Like whether you're just starting out or whether you're going through it, it's the thing that makes you comfortable. It's the thing that makes you capable, and it's a little bit hard to get, particularly if you're entry level and just starting out. So,
exactly. Well, so let's talk about Clicked a little bit. Clicked has quickly become a beacon of hope for people. It helped me. I actually have quite a few years experience in CRM and the ecosystem, but you get a little older in life and you got to like spruce up and get plugged into some new stuff. Take us back to the beginning, Jeff, and talk about how you started Click. What was the problem that you saw that was missing, which almost seems kind of obvious. Can you kind of give us that story? What was the inspiration?
It was connected, but so we started Clicked after my career literally imploded like a raging ball of fire.
Right.
So I used to work in, and I'm a career switcher, right? Like I think one of the great things about our programs is we get people who are just kind of starting out the careers for the first time, but we get a ton of career switchers who are kind of looking for that second beginning or third act even. But I used to work in advertising technology, and then I had a real life oh shit moment in October of 2019. I think I can say the S word here on the Jerry Rig Podcast, I hope.
No problem.
Where literally I was 5 minutes into a sales meeting and the entire room went into slow motion when I realized I spent my entire professional life doing something I hated. Truly hated it. It wasn't something that actually just aligned with my values and what I wanted to do with a career. And 55 minutes of the remaining meeting, I actually tried to figure out how the hell I got there. in the first place. And, everybody has steps and a path. And like, really here at Click, we kind of embrace the journey. But the reality is I never had a good avenue to kind of test drive careers, right? Like I was an entrepreneur in high school. I always kind of wanted to be a builder, and I didn't want to go to college. And I went to college, and I got really lost because college kind of redirected me in a way that ended up being a little bit painful, because I'm sitting there 12 years later in a meeting having a real life existential crisis, trying to figure out, what I'm going to do with the next version. Literally, my career was over like that. I almost threw up myself in the meeting. And I left, and I just spent 4 months trying to figure out what I was going to do next. And what it landed on is I've always been really passionate just about helping people with their careers. Kind of early in a place in my career, I didn't have a mentor, really. I had pretty decent bosses, but I also kind of worked in a silo, and I was pretty lost all the time without like that guidance. And then from that place, but also never really understanding the connection of careers to college, I jumped into the space. So in February of 2020, I actually left my job behind flat out in advertising. And it was during a hot job market. And I had a thesis, which was, how do you know if a career is right for you if you can't experience it in the first place, right? Like, why would anybody at the age of 16 say, I'm going to be a psychologist, then go get a psychology degree, and 4 years later graduate with a psychology degree, and then like hate psychology? Why would anybody choose that as a path?
Yes.
And then also, how would you get the job you want without the experience you need? And we had the connected thesis. So February of 2020, I quit during a hot job market, as I mentioned. 3 weeks later, we're in a pandemic, but I was really hell bent on trying to solve this problem. And we created, alternate pathways, or trying to create alternate pathways for people to explore careers and also launch their careers. And clicked. We were 2020. In 2020, we were COVID initiative, and now we are here with a couple of amazing corporate partners and really helping solve the problem.
That's really cool. I didn't go to college. I graduated from high school with pretty much a C average, but I had this ADHD hustle spirit in me. And I look back and I think I would not have known one iota of what the heck I wanted to do if I had went to college.
Yep.
So this ability to transition into kind of sticking your toe in the water, trying this, trying that, getting some experience, it's really cool.
Yeah, and I think a lot of studies show, I'm going to post an article maybe later on LinkedIn that I just kind of stumbled on. I think the average pivots or transitions somebody will take in their life is 7 or higher. And that's not what you think about when you just start your career, right? You think it's just going to be like this linear pathway. You're going to climb the ladder. Everything's going to be great. And that's just not how it works at all. So
No. Well, for some of us who are ADHD, it's probably more like 107. So anyway. Okay. So how do you offer all this for free? Because that's one of the things I thought, because you know how much work goes into a business and all the money and the headache and all that. And plus you got to feed your own family. So how does that work?
yeah, starting companies is really hard. I'd say like one of the things that when we were starting to figure out in 2020, again, I don't come from education. I come from a completely different background in advertising technology. And when you have kind of different perspectives, you can see how like fundamentally things are broken and really want to like hone in on like some of these big problem spaces, right? So we were very narrow in our thinking and realizing a couple of kind of key insights, which is one, people are really good at learning on their own. So I never understood why we babied people, particularly adults, right? Like, so we had, from a learning perspective, we're like, this doesn't make any sense. Why are we trying to push people down like these ladders, not really, embracing the philosophy of like going out there and failing when, toddlers do this all the time.
Right.
Right. 2-year-olds, you let them get a toy and are like, go figure it out and try not to smash your face. So we kind of had that one philosophy just from like a learning perspective, I'd say. I think in terms of the free component, though, what was tricky is we knew fundamentally multiple things were broken, which is, and I know we'll probably have a couple of entry-level folks and maybe a majority of entry-level folks or starting second careers, right, who are really feeling kind of this pain that I'll talk about, which is employers do not invest in entry-level talent. Right. And the reason employers don't invest in entry-level talent is because the funnels of training, whether it's college or say like professional certificates, do not prepare those people for careers. So from an employer perspective, what it actually is a bad deal. And this may be hard to hear, but that is kind of the reality, right? Like for them, they're like, I'm going to have to spend all this money on training. It's going to take time. And I think I'm better off just potentially hiring somebody with 3 years of experience, entry level, 3 years of experience, right?
Yeah.
Because they don't want to put in effort. Right. And that's terrible to say, but it is kind of the reality with it. Right. So for employers, they see it as a bad deal. So we're like, okay, there's something disconnected here, right? Because the reality is they actually need entry level talent. We always hear about the skills gap from like a global economic perspective. And a big piece of that is because we aren't getting people in at the earliest stages of their careers and developing those individuals with the skills that they need in some of these demand careers. Now, on the flip side, people are coming in, and learners particularly, maybe you went into college and you're going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? Maybe tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars on college degrees.
Right.
Right. And 90% of the people who join college do it to get a job. And college doesn't work at getting people jobs. Right. So when you just think about like the macro fundamentals of that, it's insane. People are spending tons of money on things to get them an outcome that doesn't work, and they're still doing it. Right. And then on the employer side, they need all those people, but they don't want to spend the money because it's too expensive. So then you have kind of money on both sides. So really what it boils down to is whose problem are you solving the most, right? And for us here at Clicked, we don't partner directly with colleges. Our colleges are technology companies, right? Like Salesforce, right? Jerry, the program that you've been through, where they need all of these people to come into their ecosystems, and they have like great credentialing programs. They have great online content, which serves as the base. But in order to get people into potential employers, and potential employers won't hire new entry-level talent unless they have experience, right? So it's pretty key that if we could kind of solve the experience piece and make this, cheap for our learners, cheap for our companies, cost-effective for talent partners, that it would all kind of come together, and it has. So.
From what I can tell on the outside, having been a former entrepreneur, I've owned probably between 7 and 8 companies over the past 20 plus years. I'm super impressed with what you guys have done. I mean,
thank you.
I get on there and there's like hundreds of people. And when I'm receiving, at the end of the sprint, everybody wants their certificates, right? And everybody's kind of like, hey, where's my certificate? How do I get my certificate? I'm sitting there and I get mine, and my brain goes, man, if I was running this, I would have to pump out 150 certificates. I mean, that just there's some manual work that goes into that.
Yeah, I mean, and you build systems, right, from a technology perspective. I think a lot of the learners have seen some of the new systems that we built, right, and they're really to help our team, right. It really is to help our team, to help improve the learner experience. So those are the things you need to think about from a business perspective. But I think for us, because we wanted to create a really scalable solution to work with technology partners, right, and one of the things that makes scale hard is the operational components of it, right? So our team is really like, we guarantee we've got learners in the Click community here. They kind of see a lot of the volume and scale that our team is actually supporting with a pretty small staff. So we've really got, the operations component really buttoned down to provide great experiences for our learners at scale.
It looks like you're herding cats sometimes.
No, we are. Doesn't look like it. We're definitely
we are herding cats. So yeah, that is super, super inspiring. I love what you guys have done. So let's get into a little bit of meat and potatoes. Seems like Clicked was really born out of a genuine desire to make a difference. And one of the things, as an ADHD marketing guy, I love out of the box thinking, game changing, impact that just looks at something and says, we've been doing it that way for years. Let's try something different. Mm-hmm. And there's very few people who can actually go down that road, because humans are they're creatures of habit. They get stuck in, they want to just keep doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So, let's see here. Let's talk about Clicked.com, the process. Walk me through the process. What type of experiences are there? How do you get started once you sign up and you're accepted into a team? What happens?
Yeah, I think like kind of going into the learning component and maybe chatting a little bit about what you kind of mentioned. I think like one cool thing about education, again, I came from advertising technology where it is basically like four big companies and they're all the big ones. It's like Google and Facebook, and it's hyper competitive, right? It's not really inclusive and it doesn't have a lot of innovation. It's actually kind of like a lot of power plays. So the dynamics of that industry versus education are very different. Education is very welcoming, and we are seeing a lot of disruption and changes and innovation in education, just kind of like because it has to. But the reality is the core tenets of education still exist, right? Like there's still college and people are still coming into college. And even if there's some of the waves of change happening, it is very ancient, right? There's like those ancient components getting into like that disruptive
Yes.
piece, right?
Right.
So one of the cool things that we always took from learning was like, we're not going to do things the same way, right? We're not going to do things the same way. We think people learn really good on their own if you give them the right environment with the right people and give them an opportunity, right? So at Clicked, when we thought about learning, what we wanted to do was building opportunity, right? We always say at Clicked, like we're not trainers or teachers here at Clicked. We're opportunity builders. And there's certainly a market for opportunity. So in terms of that, kind of going into our learning beliefs, right? A big piece was like, let's create this playground, right? Let's create this sandbox environment where people can explore freely. They can learn from others. They can learn on their own and kind of, get scalable feedback from experts who are really kind of like the driving forces of knowledge for some of these technology ecosystem partners that we work with. And it was really vibrant and really cool for it to get through. But I think like some of the core pieces is in terms of getting started, we want to meet anybody where they're at in their journey, from say, I have no idea what a Salesforce business analyst does, right? To saying, I am desperately trying to get a Salesforce business analyst role and I need some experience. Right. And we've actually built that, right? So, Jerry and some of the learners, you guys, she shadow sessions and skills challenges, some of our lighter weight experiences where you can still build skills and or build some knowledge, but it also really helps some of the people who are like, I am not ready to do a user story or a stakeholder interview, I kind of want to watch. And we actually get this from our learners a lot, right? Like when we talk about kind of the complexities of our learning design, it is very, very complicated, but it works because it supports everybody through kind of this communal learning framework. So we're meeting learners where they're at in the journey. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to drive them down funnel so they can get more excited about pathways. I think, Doug, you had a comment here. I wish I could have supported multiple college degrees. I'm sure we have learners who have done our business analyst sprint here at Salesforce and have gone through like an admin sprint and maybe have even just done our sales sprint. And what you're seeing is you're seeing all these different types of skills. You're able to react to what feels right, which, Jerry, to the point is like, we're letting people kind of like try on these different pathways and see what feels right, like see what fits, what feels with my skills perspective, and letting them be reflective around not just what they've done, but seeing what other people have done as well, right? And that actually, from a learning from a pedagogy perspective, is actually highly impactful, but also highly effective, right? We've even got some learners who are going through multiple of our corporate programs. We've had people who are going through data and analytics and our cybersecurity programs over in IBM, and people who have come through those programs and are now kind of looking at Salesforce because they want to try out those multiple careers. And then, of course, as you're going through some of those 3-week, 5-week experiences that we have, you're building portfolio assets. You're getting all this confidence and the language to show up at an interview and say, look, no, I have done this. Right? Like I have done this work. Look, you're telling me that you want me to do user stories and user interviews, and you're saying I need 2 years of experience. But what I'm telling you is I can do the work and I can prove it. And that's the piece, right? Like that's the piece, the problem that we try to solve. So allowing people, anybody to explore pathways by trying it out and then moving down funnel to get that hands-on experience so we can crush the problem.
Yes. So the way I saw and the way I kind of used LinkedIn, Clicked, was I have this thing called a story toolbox that I use for interviews, and I just keep track of them. Their use cases, their case studies, because when you get in an interview, the good interviewers are always going to ask you, what have you done? Tell us about a time. Tell us about a problem that you had to solve, blah, 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 blah. Whether it's business analytics, Salesforce administrator, whatever it is, they're going to talk about those scenarios. And that really starts to tap into whether you know what you're doing, have some idea or not. And so when you can sit there and you've gone through a sprint on Clicked, for instance, as a BA, and you created user stories and epics and all that stuff rolled in, you can tell that story. And, they're not going to say, hey, was that a real job that you actually worked at for 2 years?
Yep.
No, this is a project I worked on, and this is what happened. This was the problem. Here's what my solution was. I worked with our team and we did blah, 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 blah. And that was all from Clicked. And that's cool stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, it really boils down to the problem, right? Like employers typically wouldn't just get that with, say, a college degree or a certificate, right?
No,
you actually need, from a fundamentals perspective, to have had some applied learning.
Yes.
And one of the other things that we do here at Click, and Jerry, this is we put people in teams, right?
Yep.
The most important skills that you can develop as a human working in career, particularly in the career paths that we do, is some of those soft skills, right? Like critical thinking, teamwork, communication, collaboration. They call these 21st century skills for a reason, particularly with kind of the emergence of AI. A lot of that stuff is being automated, but the ability to solve problems with others is, in a nutshell, what you need to be doing as an employer. And yes, if you're working in data analytics or cybersecurity career paths or any of our Salesforce paths, like having those fundamentals of this is how the things work and these are how the buttons work is obviously super important, particularly as you're building like niches, and Salesforce I'd still kind of consider a niche, even if there's other pathways. The ability to apply that to a situation, as you just mentioned, Jerry, is everything. That is table stakes for employers. They want to know that in the end, you're going to be able to solve my problem with the skills that you built, not just that you have the skills. So,
yes. Quick example. I had a young lady that worked for me. She had just graduated from a university in Washington State with a BA degree in marketing. And someone who had never been to college, don't know the experience, don't even understand it. I was asking her these questions about like, hey, so, you had this professor and all these classes and you got a BA degree in marketing. That's really, really cool. So talk to me a little bit about the stuff you learned. And it was like, what? And it was all this textbook jargon. And I said, well, what about social media? No, we never once even brought that up as a subject. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. So that really told me how, it does give them somewhat of a foundation when you come out with that degree, but that practical day-to-day experience in a business, dealing with problems, rolling up your sleeves, getting punched in the nose every day. Yeah, it's not there.
Yeah, I could probably talk about higher ed for about 7 hours. But I think just think about how ridiculous the concept of creating books and a curriculum that will last 4 years to get a job in marketing is. Marketing changes every 6 months, right? New tools.
Yes.
And it's just what are we doing, right? I'd say for anybody who's I'm going to go get a marketing degree and that's going to get me a job, that's a hard sell to me. Honestly, you're better off go working for free at a startup for a year. You're going to build more practical experience.
Oh,
yeah.
Save 100%.
Tens of thousands of dollars. And I know there's the dynamics of well, it's free work, but I think would you rather spend 4 years of life? Maybe, right? College is fun. I had a lot of fun. The one skill that I picked up was I am now an incredible beer chugger, and I wouldn't have done that without college.
Right.
But in terms of helping me with my career, it did.
I learned that without college, by the way.
Yeah.
Hey, so how many participants are typically in a sprint, for instance, average?
Yeah, so I think on average, we're probably around 150 to 200, maybe a little bit more. I think both of our programs are a little bit different. The Salesforce program, of course, Jerry, that you go through is pretty massive. I think we had one that had 400 participants in it recently. Yeah, and the IBM programming is continuing to grow. And as we bring on more partners, it slowly ramps up, but it takes time, right? I think one of the things that's also a little bit different with our program is it does need a little bit of opportunity to bake, right? And the bigger the community, the actual stronger the learning is. So there's a lot of things that we do on our end to make sure that we can continue to nurture people, push people down funnel, and give people jobs, but also bringing more people upper funnel as they come in, because all of those things are really quite required for the programs to work. But I think we've got about 3,000 to 4,000 monthly active users across the programming. So we're able to make a pretty large impact.
Yeah, when I jumped in there for the few sprints that I did, I was pretty amazed at like how many people were involved. But you're right; it's there are folks who just want to sit and kind of watch,
Hmm.
and I was more of the like, okay, I'm in charge here. Anybody got a problem with that? Nope, go ahead, run with it. All right, cool. So I was kind of running the teams, and it's nice to kind of, it's nice when somebody jumps in and becomes the bus driver because then the rest of the team kind of tends to come together, and you got to make sure you let everybody participate and have input and that sort
Yeah.
of thing. But it was
Yeah.
super fun too. A
Yeah.
lot of
And I
fun.
mean, like, I think careers is really hard, right? Like it's very much anxiety inducing. And I think it makes the learning that's required for people to develop into good professionals really challenging, right? And one thing that we kind of realized early at Click is when you kind of like lower the temperature a little bit, really frees up learning, right? Because you'll
Yes.
test like going through one of our sprints is not easy. And this kind of goes back into one of our core beliefs is why are we babying adults? Right? Like,
Yes.
why are we babying adults with all these, like, like, taking these slow steps is like just throw them in the fire because the reality is when you start on day one, particularly if you want to work at a large consultancy like I worked at Deloitte, you are in for a rude awakening if you think it's as simple as just taking an exam, passing a certification, having a college degree. It's next level, right? And we want to prepare. We really want to prepare our learners for what it's like to be in a career. And if it's too hard here at Clicked, it's probably going to be a little bit more challenging at work. But even sometimes going through some of our Clicked experiences can really kind of like reduce the anxiety of day one, right? Like we've definitely said all along the way is we make it hard on purpose because the moment somebody lands at the first day, one, we don't want them to be there in the headlights. They're still going to be, but we want to
Yep.
reduce imposter syndrome, right? We really want to reduce imposter syndrome. We really want to make sure that people, one, feel more prepared, but are also confident in the challenges or confident in failure, right? Can learn from failure and can embrace really kind of a growth mindset as they leap into the next stage in their career.
Yes. Yeah. Deloitte. Real quick. So what's that world like?
It's crazy. I mean, you're busy. There was when I was at Deloitte, and again, like I truly love work, right? Like whether it's me starting my own company or I've always been somebody who like really just immerses myself in it. Probably wasn't a week there where I didn't have at least one night where I was working until 2 or 3 a.m. That would have been pretty standard, and not that it's like that for everyone, but I think when you work at a really prestigious firm like that, you're going to have the expectations that you're going to learn a ton, right? And you do. Like Deloitte is actually an incredible place to work. They've also obviously been a partner for us on the Salesforce program as well, and really just an exceptional culture. But it's hard, right? It is hard. You have to work in that pace. You're working with really demanding clients, big clients who have like big needs, et cetera. So it's a great place to learn and grow for sure, but it is a challenge.
So, in a nutshell, go ahead. There's a question. What is Clicked?
Clicked is a place to explore, build, and launch careers in tech for free.
For free.
Wild,
Hey,
huh?
yeah, it is kind of wild because there's nothing free in this world. I've always kind of associated free with this concept of, well, if it's free,
Must suck.
it must suck. There's no
We
value
get
there.
this all the time, honestly. We get this all the time. Like it's actually a problem for us. Like people will come here and they'll be it's free and they'll turn away. But the reality is like we see the stories, right? We have people that are coming into our programs and we're creating these free pathways. And of course it's thanks to, amazing companies like Salesforce and IBM, right? The reality is they're the ones that are sponsoring these programs to make them free avenues to literally change people's lives, right? To get people the careers that they've wanted, because without something like Click, they couldn't. And that's pretty damn cool.
Yes, it absolutely is. That was my first trepidation at first. It's like,
Get it all
time. I got to spend time doing this. But once I
time.
got in, it was like, I mean, there's a few bumps in the road. Anytime you got a whole bunch of people in a room doing their thing, you're going to have, a little bit of jostling, moving around, bumping elbows. But, that's life and that's
It's
work.
totally life.
And
100%.
you gotta muscle through that, and you gotta try to stay positive. And if somebody gets on your nerves, you have to just kind of suck it up and work with it. I mean, that's just what I
Yeah, you don't get to
liked
pick
about it.
your. I mean, we've started letting people pick their teams, which is fine, but you don't get to pick your teammates when you start work, right? And work
Nope,
dynamics are hard. You never know what you're going to get ever. So
ever. And I'm living proof of that.
there you go.
So let's talk about, let's see here. So this hands-on approach, which is for me, that's how I learn.
That's how everybody learns. It's backed by science.
Well, there you go. Okay, take the word out of my mouth. I'll read stuff and I'll kind of get
Yeah.
it. User stories and sprint processes and all this stuff. You can read the Scrum Master Bible 100 times, but it's when you get in
Yeah.
and you experience it with your eyes and your fingers and your brain, and you actually do it, then it just comes together.
Yeah, it's called applied learning. And it just brings into all the fundamentals. And I think a big reason why I have going back to like college, it's like read a textbook, take a test, read a textbook, take a test. And yes, there's projects and stuff like that, and those are the most impactful things, right? Because you can actually then apply the learning, and that's where the learning is stored and actually used and reflected upon, right? Very rarely, like there will be nobody in the chat, probably noticed, like I had an influential exam that I took, right? There may be a
No.
reward at the end, which kind of gives you that
Yeah.
base level skill, but if you can't transfer that into an applied learning component, the reality is you're likely to lose those skills. So the continuous applied learning is one of the reasons we do so many different types of experiences and allow people to touch on different pieces. And of course, they're all moderately connected as well, to kind of build this map of the connection across all of these different skills in our learners' brains, to really store that knowledge, which again, then you can lean into an interview, right? You can lean into an interview. It's so much easier from a human perspective to be able to tackle onto something that sticks, right? That you can actually stick in your brain and say, this is a moment that I can go out and find and talk really reasonably to because I experienced it, right?
Yes.
So,
It does stick. You have to experience it. You can read a scenario and muscle your way through it, and you'll kind of sort of sound like an idiot in an interview. But when you've experienced it, you felt it right here.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's there. And
Yeah.
so, and that comes through. So we got a question there. Can you talk about the new voucher system?
Yeah, so the new voucher system, and thanks for everybody for being patient as we work out the tweaks. One of the problems of a free program is people take it for granted, right? Huge problem, right? Like, and our programs are hard on purpose. So while we have always been really hell bent here at Clicked on making sure that our learning programs are free for learners, the reality is without like a skin in the game, people just drop out. They take advantage of the experiences, and it makes for a subpar experience. So the introduction of the voucher system is our way to hold people a little bit accountable for it while creating better team dynamics. We unequivocally, I'd say the worst thing about our programs, and our programs are awesome, I'll reflect and say that, is when teams fall apart. And the team dynamics is so important, right? Like if you actually have gone through one of our experiences and your team fell apart and you can reflect back on that failure and you tell that to somebody in an interview, they're going to spark up. They're going to be like, wow, that's great. Like reflecting on those types of failures or those team dynamics or a time that you push through challenging team dynamics, those are really the moments that, again, for an employer says, okay, this person can work with the people in my organization to help us solve a problem. So,
one of the things that I did on both teams, I tended to be a little bit of a bull in a china shop and took control. But one of the things out of the gate is I said, okay, talk to me, folks. Tell me exactly how you would like to see your level of participation. Are you a working mom and you just don't have time, you just want to watch? And that way they tell the team, hey, I can't really participate much, but I'll be there when I can.
Yep.
Fine.
Yeah,
Then
100%.
everybody knows, and it's all on the table. And those that want to dive in. Those that want to do presentations, some want to be part of it and learn everything and be involved, but they don't want to do any presentations. And
Yep.
so if you get that out of the way right from like literally the first half an hour of the
Yep.
team meeting, it really, really helps.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to like some of the pieces, like the core tenets of what we believe here at Clicked is it's not a structured program. That is 100% by design, right? Because we believe that structured programs can create a little bit of rigidity, and everybody learns at their own pace. Like everyone knows this. Everyone learns at their own pace, and everyone has the same like different amount of time, right? Like you mentioned, we've got a lot of people who are transitioning moms and kids get sick. You never know what's going to happen, and they're working, and maybe they've only got 2 hours a week, right?
Yep. Yep.
So,
So one of the things that we did on some of our teams, which was really cool, I'm a pretty good graphic designer, been doing it for years, but you lean on your other team members and you're going, oh man, Kristen rocks. She is so good. She's got Canva down and all the skills. So we're going to use her graphics for, maybe a presentation if she doesn't want to do the presentation. And by having all those kind of resources with different talents and different levels, it's a lot of fun. Just a ton of fun.
yeah, and I mean, it's also reflective, right? Like I think going back into the decision to make careers, right? I think one of the reasons why, particularly with like programs like Salesforce, which is an ecosystem,
Yes.
literally you can learn the tool and there are unlimited amount of paths that basically fit somebody's specific skill set. And what I mean by that is like you may come in and have kind of this understanding, you're like, I'm going to be an admin. And then you go through and be like, actually, I have the business analyst jobs, right? Like I really connect with people and I can really do customer discovery. Or maybe you're actually like, I actually love giving presentations and maybe sales is a right fit for me. Or maybe there's a marketing component of it. It is one of the really cool things and one of the things that we really embrace here, but that team component actually allows people to understand the skills that they shine at, right? I think if for particularly our people who are kind of joining the stream here right now is if you really lean into the things that you're really good at and really enjoying, it just makes everything a lot easier. Instead of trying to fit yourself into a box, really lean on strengths, right? I think when people like understand their weaknesses, that's great, but leaning on your strengths and building paths for the things that you're good at are likely to be the things that will help you excel in a potential career, and really being mindful of that. And I think, Jerry, to that point is, you see that, right? You get to see how you kind of align with other peers and you're like, oh, wow, I'm really good at this. And I actually, maybe I didn't know it before.
If you go in with kind of a general love of people and process and collaboration and just open your mind to new different ideas, to me, that is so fun. So we have Sana Zafar. I'm going to take a quick stab at this, but she says, I've been advised to get experience as a newbie. You should work with charities. Would you recommend Clicked in preference to working with a charity? I say both. I say talk to charities, volunteer your time, maybe do some intern work at a company if you can, and do Clicked because, like I said, you're creating this story toolbox. Like in a Word document, you got all these case studies and these stories. And once you experience them, kind of memorize them, you can just rapid fire them during an interview and you sound so cool.
I totally agree. I think it's really just which one you can grapple on and which one works for where you're at in your stage of life, right? I think if you've got 40 hours a week and a charity's like, we need you 40 hours a week and you really want to build that experience and you want to sit there for 6 months, work for free and you can do it, I guarantee that's going to help you get a job, right? If you don't have that time or you want an accelerated path, like we do accelerated learning here at Clicked, and that's by design. Maybe you do here at Clicked, but it could be both, right? It really could be both. I think it totally, here, let's go to the mug. It depends on everyone's situation and what they can do and what they can actually get. Even working at charity sometimes is going to be hard. And I think, it's hard. I think the unpaid work aspects, and even like some of the laws that we have around that are fair to protect the consumer. But I also think sometimes when you're working for a startup or a charity and getting that experience, it's actually a great way to get a job.
Well, here's what I'll say from experience. If you get your experience lined up properly on your LinkedIn profile, you might not ever have to submit a resume. And I say that because I spent a ton of time researching keywords and all this stuff for my target role, coupled with Clicked and all this other experience. I've been averaging, and this is no exaggeration, between 5 and 7 recruiter emails and phone calls, just random phone calls every single day, almost to the point of annoyance.
Yeah. I mean, it's, so one, we've never used a resume here at Clicked when hiring anybody. We've never done that. Fundamentally here at Clicked, we think it is trash. So
Yeah!
it is absolutely insane that somebody would edit their resume to look like somebody else's resume just so they can get through a system to have a conversation about their resume, right? Just absolutely insane. And for our learners who are maybe spending 90% of their time on their job search editing the resume to apply to jobs, please stop. You're so much better off doing what Jerry had just mentioned, but also networking, right? Like the reality is, and for everybody who's coming in here, like networking is probably the single best thing you can do in your career. And I mean that once you land your career is like go out to lunch with the people that you work with, right? Like build those relationships. Those things are so fundamental to your growth. I think in terms of like some of my big mistakes is I didn't embrace that enough early on in my career. It was till later in my career I realized how important my network would be in the future. And I know networking is hard, particularly as you're an entry level. So it is being like very targeted and pointed. Please don't just like randomly reach out to people on LinkedIn and say hi. Right. You can be thoughtful and sometimes you'll get responses and sometimes you won't. But those, you know, I think the people really get stuck into like, my resume needs to be perfect. My resume needs to be perfect. That's tough. Go find the recruiter, right? Go find somebody that you know in your network that knows the recruiter or multiple connections and trying to find a pathway to a conversation because 95% of resumes don't even get read.
Yeah. Quick stat. I actually went so far was to act as if my business needed an ATS system. And I contacted 3 of the top the companies that have software for ATS systems. And I met with their salespeople as if I was going to buy it purely to do some research. And I have to tell you, it's a total gate. Yep. If your resume doesn't match, 98% of them are never see the light of day. Only 2% end up on the hiring manager's desk, and that might be 15 or 20 resumes. And out of those, they're going to interview like 4 or 5 or 6.
Yeah, and I guarantee you, anybody who got referred from somebody who worked at that company is going to have a conversation, right? Like that's the other thing I think everyone should realize is hiring and recruiting starts from inside first, right? The resumes is actually second, but that's where the vast majority of people spend their time, and even sometimes recruiters spend their time. But reality is inside the walls is the best way. And yeah, that's hard. I think there's a question from Ambry, how to get interviews, even getting interview calls is really hard. Totally agree, right? Especially depending on the particular market. But it is as you start to build meaningful relationships. And what I mean by that is like if you're spamming and reaching out to thousands of people who are Salesforce professionals and you're not being really tailored to the message about like why this is somebody I would reach out to, you're probably going to get ignored. And honestly, it's going to be frustrating. It does, not humble bragging, but it does happen, right? So really be targeted, right? Like, what is my past experience and what is it about me as a candidate that will shine when I reach out to this person, right? And or do I have somebody in my network who can vouch for me, who could introduce me to this person? I think that big piece of like having the people who would vouch for you, whether it's even like team members and Clicked, right? Like one of the cool things is we're now starting to get like team members who have gone together and like, I work with this person, she's great, and getting people jobs. Those are people in your network. Yes. Right. So getting those people who can really vouch for you and can help lean and create kind of introductions to people is single-handedly the easiest way that you will be able to get a call.
I'm going to introduce a term to everyone. I'm not sure if you've heard this before, but the term is called bigger than life. And when I was a radio DJ in Seattle back in the day, it's funny. You walk in this little room, you jump on a microphone, you talk, you play music, you be goofy, you be yourself. And then you get out on the street at events and people are standing there looking at you as if you were some kind of god. And that phenomenon, and video is the same way. Somebody does a podcast, they have 100 people that watch them. Just an average guy. All of a sudden you got a guy who has 500,000 followers He's bigger than life. He's huge. When people see him, they think he's a celebrity. So be a mini celebrity by plugging into LinkedIn, writing articles, offering your opinion, open up, show your life, what you're trying to do. And after a while, people start thinking that you're a little bit bigger than life.
Yeah, I was just going to post this for our introverts. Don't worry, you don't need to do that. I would say, it really is. It is funny. I think one of
It's
the
not
cool
required, but
not required.
What happens is now when hiring managers are out there looking, they look at your profile, then they see what you've been doing. Now all of a sudden you're worth a little bit more money. They want you a little bit more.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some truth in there. I'd also say I think if you look at people who are in Deloitte or Accenture or people that, and I'll say particularly for our Salesforce program, you see a lot of people who are not celebrities and are really successful.
Sure.
Right? I think there's definitely paths, and I think for one of the cool things that I think for our learners is we have coaches who have very different personalities as well. Right. We have these coaches who who are bigger than life, like Vanessa, you had on your podcast area. And then you guys are more like our more cerebral folks who are, very tactical. But I think a big piece, Jerry, is being your authentic self and allowing that to show. And I think even extroverts can excel here in putting your authentic self kind of out there, because employers are always going to gravitate towards that and really just being like, this is who I am, right? Like, this is who I am as a person.
Yes.
And this is what I'm going to offer your organization. And this is why I'm the best fit, right? Like, I think our learners, and I'd say, and I know this is hard because of, the problem we're solving in terms of experience, but if you're going in there and saying, I'm the best candidate because I'm going to try the hardest, just know everyone else who's applying is probably saying that same thing, right? You
Yes.
really need to make your
Yes.
pitch tight, right? Be like, this is actually why, because I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, and I'm going to try. And I have this person who can vouch for me that will say, I'm going to go above and beyond. So I think it really is about building a persona, honestly, about who you are as a candidate. And we call this as a candidate to job fit, right? Like, this is what a candidate's persona is, and this is the job. And if you are the best fit, you're likely going to get hired.
Yes, I absolutely agree. Totally agree with that. So tell us some success stories. Do you have some of those?
Oh, for clicked and jobs? Oh,
Yeah.
so many. Yeah. I mean, I think I'd say a couple that are pretty cool is we've definitely, we get a lot of career transitioners, and I was a career transitioner. So being able to support people in their second act is great. But we have a lot of people who would have never thought about getting, a job in tech because of backgrounds that they came from. I think we had a past hairdresser who went through our programs, went through a Salesforce Talent Alliance career cohort, and landed a role at a big consultancy because she was able to showcase what she was capable of, right? And really embrace a lot of the different elements of our experiences, going from top funnel, be like, I don't know what this is, and realizing BA was a right fit for her, and then going through all of our experiences, building the confidence, and ultimately landing a job, right? And I think, those types of stories are awesome when you can see the full cycle of not really knowing what path was right, narrowing down those decisions, getting the experience, and embracing the clicked methodology, which is a little insane. You've been through it, Jerry. It's a little bit funky. It's unique, right? And it does require embracing the concept that is clicked, because it's different from a learning perspective. So, I mean, there's so many cool stories. Love the stories. That's why, we kind of wake up and do this every day, because we can literally help change people's lives.
So what gets you out of bed in the morning?
That our learners. Yeah. I mean, this is no joke. It's hard. Like, when you do something as crazy as creating free programs for people to get jobs in a world of paid programs, in a world of massive educational backgrounds, and actually achieving results, right? We're literally getting people jobs for free. It's pretty wild, but it is for the people that we're supporting. I think, our team always gets just inspired by the learners who really embrace what Clicked is about, but then seeing the results is just, makes it easy to wake up and work hard for them.
I see a lot of LinkedIn posts lately. Some people are getting very, very depressed and frustrated with the job search process.
Yeah.
The one I saw the other day was just, the dude was dropping F-bombs and everything. I'm like, I think LinkedIn is going to put the kibosh on this post. But it was like, I've applied for thousands of jobs. I've submitted thousands of resumes. and I can't get one single call, and I look at their profile and it's just like, I can rattle off 10 things right off the bat. It's like, bro, you got a picture of a cat up top. Your headshot is something that was taken in a closet. I mean, it's just like you have like nothing going in your favor. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's about building a persona, right? I think and I think there's candidates out there who will go the spray and pray route and will land a job. I would not recommend that to anybody, right?
No,
I
no.
just wouldn't. I mean, like, and again, like some people are going to do that and they're going to succeed, but I don't think spray and pray is the right way for a job. What you really are trying to build is your persona and making yourself the best fit for specifics. And I think, we have, we've done a couple articles again on the Salesforce program with Salesforce Ben. There's been a little shift in, the tides in terms of entry level market and what that looks like. It's the same with like every market.
Yes.
UX interns, like that is way worse than than our Salesforce program. Cybersecurity is really hard to break into, right? Data and analytics is also really hard to break into, and the problem is still the investment in entry level talent in general. But in the end, as an individual, you need to try to find like where do I fit best, right? Like if you can really build a niche and a really clear talking track of where you add value in the types of companies, there's a bit of also patience, right? What can you do in interim while you're looking for like this new potential beginning, or how do you upskill in particular areas that you think are good fits for you and can apply to roles that you're kind of seeing in the market and those types of things. And it's of course easier said than done. I acknowledge that, but I think really being reflective of some of the things and getting good advice from people that you trust is a great way to do it. And really just building that really strong persona.
So, Click is serving this vital bridge. And so just looking ahead, talk to me a little bit about where you see Click going.
Yeah, we want to continue to provide more pathways. I think that's the biggest thing is, Salesforce and IBM are just like incredible partners, and there's other incredible partners that we want to bring along. The reality is the more partners we bring in, the more opportunity we can create for not just the learners we have now, but future learners. So for us, it's just to continue to grow our programming with the current clients that we have and continue to bring on new partners who want to help us change the way people get jobs.
Yeah, that's cool. So right now, the partners you got are Salesforce. Who else?
And IBM.
Okay, just those two primarily.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So Salesforce is obviously motivated in the Salesforce space. And then IBM is motivated kind of in what spaces?
Yeah, so they're technical career tracks. So right now we're focused on data and analytics and cybersecurity. So those two programs, and similar to Salesforce, what they've created is essentially professional certificates, right? So professional certificates, which can create some of the base level knowledge that you might need in data and analytics and or cybersecurity. And what we're creating is portfolio pieces. And I think the cool thing with having those specific tracks is, not specific to ecosystem, but even on the Salesforce side, we do the data and analytics stuff, is it can be a little bit more flexible and transferable, but we also do get a lot of people who just want to upskill in those particular regions as well. Like getting cybersecurity fundamentals is just like a great skill to build. So not just helping people find new careers, which is core to what us do, but also building some additional skills from an upskilling perspective.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Well, hey, our time's about up. So talk to me real quick in closing. What would you like to say to all of our folks that are on board here?
Yeah, I mean, I just echo, I think for a lot of our learners who are going through our program, one, thanks. It really is like the honor of our lifetime that we could actually do this for you all. And I truly mean that. And I think secondarily is really hit on what am I doing in my job search, right? Like, what am I doing in my job search and when am I ready to say I am the best candidate, right? Because I know a lot of our learners are trying to get jobs right now. And what you want to make yourself is the best candidate for that role and really thinking about the candidate to job fit and network. And before any of that, sleep. Please sleep. Take care of yourself. Be a fresh human when you show up to those interviews and don't get discouraged. Everyone has their own path. Everyone takes their own time. Don't listen to a lot of the noise that you see. If somebody is like, I went through a program and 2 months later I got a job. You are not them. You are you, and your path will take you on your path. Embrace it, and sleep.
And I think, in parting, one of the things that I always say is, hey folks, it's a numbers game. It really is. And the more people you talk to, the more people you interface with, the more things happen. It's just a fact of life.
Sleep and network.
Yeah, well, which is networking, exactly. That's one of the first things I learned when I was getting into business with a older guy who was a professional. He was like, son, the more people you talk to, the more things happen. And that always stuck in my head. That's awesome. Cool. Well, thanks, Jeff.
You got it. Thanks for having me, Jerry.
I'm so glad you came on the Jerry Rig podcast. To our listeners, be sure to check out clicked.com. Go check it out. Trust me, if nothing else happens, if you never ever get a job, you'll have a bunch of fun and you'll learn stuff. We can explore career possibilities, and remember that everyone has a right to a satisfying career. So I'm Jerry Sherstead. This was the Jerry Rig podcast from CRM Analytics. We've got it rigged where business innovation, process, and curiosity meet technology. You're always one step ahead, and we're going to see you next time, folks. Take care.
The Jerry Rigged Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or Google. Business technology for CEOs, managers, and business owners. We're here to deliver insights and strategies without the fluff. This is the Jerry Rigged Podcast.